G'day. Sorry if this sounds terrible, but this YouTube doesn't like my microphone. It only uses the webcam mic, which is crap. It's terrible. It's awful audio. I've tried several times to try and get it. Sometimes it does, but sometimes it doesn't. It just says something's gone wrong. So there you go. So can you hear me, first of all? Everybody there? Is it working? Do we have anything happening? Now, I've got to change some stuff here. Where are we? It's working. Excellent. Good to know. Now, I just have to work out how to turn stuff off and on. This terrible user interface. I want to turn off the slow mode. I think slow mode's on or something. Yeah. How do I change that? How many people know how to drive this thing? I don't use YouTube chat for a reason. It's terrible. YouTube live stream for a reason. It's terrible. How am I going to turn off the slow mode? I don't know. It's terrible. Anyway, we'll leave slow mode on for the time being because, hey, no option. Right. Yes. I can take these headphones off because I'm not actually listening to anything. So that makes more sense. So here we are. It is 3 o'clock in the afternoon, New Zealand time. And you've probably seen what does this say? Okay. Stuff's popping up left, right, and center. No idea what this is all about. You've probably seen my latest video about rules and regulations. My usual trolls are there. Doug J, thank you, Doug. Northland Rider and Gutsy Movies. I got to say hello to all my trolls because I love it when they chime in with their little words of encouragement. I'll just natter on for a while because it's not quite the time we're supposed to start, but I wanted to have a bit of opportunity to retry if things didn't work, which I'm doing, hopefully. So what am I going to talk about today? Actually, I'll just talk about, first of all, these videos on regulations. I've been doing a few of them because somebody has to. Where's everybody else? Where are the other influencers? Why aren't they sort of standing up and shouting from the rooftops, this is not good enough? I noticed that FTC and the Flight Test Community Association and FPV Freedom Coalition are finally waking up to what Einstein said, that repeating the same action, expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. Well, he's alleged to have said that. Because we've seen since the Section 336 was revoked back in 2000, whenever it was, once it was revoked, many of the groups said, we're working with FAA. We're working with the FAA to make sure that the hobby is protected. And following that, we saw the introduction of registration, we saw the trust, and we've seen remote ID. So I think it's time to say, that approach actually isn't working. It's not working at all. You're not changing, you're not doing anything because the FAA is talking to you, telling you what you want to hear, encouraging words, and then they're just doing what they want to do. So it's time for a different approach, I believe. Now, they've got this initiative to reduce the threshold or increase the threshold for registration up to 1 kilo, but I don't think that's going to fly because it's not about safety. We've conclusively proven this whole, thank you, Robert. He's thrown money at me. I like that. It's not about safety. It's all security. It's all about control now. We know that. If it was about safety, then we have to realize when the original rules were made, this was before there was any evidence, any data to give any assurance as to how dangerous these drones were. And so they looked at a worst case. These drones could bring down airliners. They could kill people. They could do this. They could do that. So they made some very restrictive regulations. Now we've got 10 years of data, and the data says these things are really safe. Not one death in the history of recreational use of multi-rotor drones. So you would think that if this was about safety and security, they would be reducing the level of regulation, not increasing it, but no, they're increasing it. So it's not about safety, it's not about security. And because they say, it's security. Well, I challenge them to produce one instance where the recreational use of multi-rotor drones and model aircraft has represented a threat to the security of any nation. It happens. It doesn't happen. So the evidence says these are over-regulations, but they continue to wind the taps up. We've got remote ID coming in the USA. It's ridiculous, crazy stuff. I make these videos because nobody else does. And it's just nice to see that, what's that say? What data do I speak of, Robert? Yeah, the data, the fact that we've got now 10 years of since multi-rotors became a thing, not one death. That's a pretty sound piece of data that says the risk isn't perhaps zero, but it's extremely low. Name one other branch of aviation that has had no deaths in the last 10 years. You can't. It's the safest form of aviation there is. So even though we have ultralights and paramotors, they don't have the same level of regulation we do. People are dying as a result of paramotor and ultralight use. So why are we being overregulated and they're not being regulated? If it was about safety, that situation would not exist. So there's the data. And oh, thank you, Buzzard, mate. $5, that's excellent. That'll go quite a long way. Because what I was getting at is people are saying, some people have said, my trolls, you're only making these videos for clicks. You're not, you're just, there's no point in making these videos. You're just doing it for clicks to attract, earn money on YouTube. And I have to say, I've been looking at my figures. These videos about regulations and things, they actually really harm the channel. Now, my average videos of people having fun with RC models and so forth on this channel, they get anywhere from 12 to 40. Some of them get hundreds of thousands of views. They're very popular. I get a lot of views, which means, the revenue is proportional to the amount of views. That's great. It's not a lot of money, but it's still better than nothing. However, if you look at the videos I do on trying to protect the hobby from overregulation, they get, 4,000, 5,000 views. Really, every time I post a video about regulation, my channel takes a hit because YouTube, it says, oh, you've posted, when I post a popular video, it says, oh, people like watching your videos. We're going to promote them. We're going to show them to people. And so the overall viewership goes up. Every time I post a really popular video, my channel viewership goes up. Well, my video views go up. But when I post an unpopular video, one that says this video is not performing as usual, which is usually one of these videos about rules and regulations, YouTube says, you're no longer interesting. You're a boring old fart. We're not going to show your videos to anybody. And so the views on the entire channel fall. YouTube stops recommending me. So I'm taking a personal hit in my attempt to promote this or protect this hobby from overregulation. So those trolls that say it's only for the money, no, if I was only after the money, I wouldn't be making any of these videos. I'd be sitting there collecting my affiliate fees from all the links in my description, having mid-roll ads and sponsorships. That's how I would be running my channel, but that's exactly what I don't do because it's not about the money. Nevertheless, the super chats are great. Yeah, so that's the situation. Now, the video I posted last about non-compliance, that's created some interesting feedback. And I know that the New Zealand National Model Flying Body rang me this morning to have a discussion on that one. And I have to say, they are actually pretty good. They are equivalent of the FA, or not the equivalent of MAC or the AMA or whatever. They're pretty good. I mean, they are in a hard place over this because they, I'm a member of Model Flying New Zealand, and so I'm pretty sure that they will be getting a call from the Civil Aviation Authority saying, what is your member doing flying BVLOS, flying FPV without a spotter? And so we've had a discussion, worked that out. So yeah, but I was flying in my garden, not as a member of Model Flying New Zealand, flying as an individual citizen with all the rights and freedoms of a citizen to make my own big boy decisions. I normally wear long pants. I had shorts on that time, but I wear long pants and I make the decisions that someone wearing long pants would make. Yeah. So that's basically it. Now, one thing people brought up, and it's really good. I complained in that video about the neighbor's chainsaw. Well, it wasn't actually the neighbor. It was about 3 or 4 houses down. And people said, oh, but your whoop is more noisy than a chainsaw. Hey, they had a very good point. How ironic. And I fess up, yep, okay, my little whoop was noisy. But a lot of people also want to know why are whoops so noisy? And this is something I've been meaning to cover in a separate video on RC model reviews. But I'll cover it a bit today. Now, oh, excuse me, this is the whoop I was using. It's a Fox Whoop 25. And like most whoops, it's a pusher. It's a pusher. The props are on. I don't know why they make them pushers. You can't take off from grass. It makes no sense to me. So the props are underneath, and it's noisy because anyone who's ever flown a fixed wing will know they're really noisy. Why are they so noisy? You have a prop on the front, much quieter than a prop on the back. And the reality is that when you have a turbulent airflow, such as air that's flowed over these little duct supports or the wing of a fixed wing model, going through a propeller, it's a siren. That's the same way sirens work. They pass air through a rotating disc. And if the air's turbulated, it's much, much louder. So if you want a quiet whoop, you get something like this, which has got the props on the top. So they're actually operating in clean air and blowing through the ducts, blowing through the struts on the bottom. Much, much quieter. But for some reason, everyone makes them like this, because I guess everyone just following the leader. If I was designing a whoop, it would not be a pusher whoop. It would be a conventional, prop at the top, but who knows? Anyway, better look at the comments, because this is an interactive stream. Yeah, Robert's right. Most AMA, MAC, and other clubs pretty much rolled over and showed their belly, which is disappointing. It's disappointing. And as I've said many, many times before, this was a strategy produced by the regulators, especially in America, where they basically said, we're going to do all these bad things, but if you support us, we'll give you special privileges, so it won't affect your members quite so much. They got bought off. These organizations got bought off by the offer of privilege, and that's backfired on MAC, because privileges that are given can always be removed, and that's what happened with MAC in Canada. They took the privileges back. And who's it? Danish Stallion says, I got one of those Fox Whoops to run freestyle. What props do you like? I like the green ones. I don't know what they are, the ones that came with it, so I've just been using those. That's all I've got. They work pretty well, actually. And Dave says these regulations are the same as traffic tickets, a money grab. Yeah, I don't think money grab is secondary. The real money is coming from having full control of this 0 to 400 foot airspace. The real people who are going to be paying money are the commercial operators, if they ever appear. I mean, let's face it, commercial drone operations are, when was it, 2015 or 2016, that Amazon said within 2 years we will be delivering by drone? Do you know how many drone deliveries Amazon's done? Last time I checked, I think it was about 12 in 8 years. Really, that's it. That just hasn't happened. It's not going to happen. The economics do not stack up. Oh, Morning View, thank you, mate. Excellent, much appreciated the super chat. Remember, it is my birthday. You can throw money at me. I will not complain. Well, it was my birthday, but late with the stream. And Phil lives in Canada and absolutely sucks. Yes, it does suck. But and people have said, oh, it wasn't Transport Canada's fault. It was MAC's fault because they didn't honour the exemption. They didn't follow the rules of the exemption. No, it's MAC's fault, because they never should have been an exemption. They should have stood up and said, no, we're not having it. But they, like everyone else, they got bought off with the offer of an exemption, give you special privilege. Because it must be remembered that these organisations are not there to protect the hobby. They're there to protect the interests of their members. And going back to the 70s and 80s, most people who flew model aircraft flew in a club. So the national model flying body was the hobby. These days, a lot more people fly outside of clubs and within clubs. So there is a huge divide between those who are members of an organisation and those who aren't. And the organisations are only interested in looking out for themselves. Oh, Blizzard, thanks, mate. And oh yeah, Sean, always rely on Sean. Thanks, mate. Much appreciated. And thank you for the happy birthday. And making model planes, $2. Excellent. Oh, I shall be able to afford new batteries by the time this stream's over. But yeah, as I say, I do appreciate the super chats, because I am taking a hit financially for pursuing, these videos on protecting the hobby. But it's something I've got to do. I'm not in this for the money. Of course, I need money to survive, but I'm not in it for the money. I'm in it for the hobby. I get really annoyed the way things are going now. The thing that annoys me most of all, and Flight Test should be really concerned about this as well, is that in the UK, ooh, Cliff, thanks, mate. I always rely on you too. In the UK, you've got to be, I think it's 18 to have an operator ID, and you can't fly anything over 250 grams without an operator ID. So, unless I'm wrong, that means that if you're a 13-year-old kid wanting to fly legally over 250 grams and you haven't got an adult to be the operator for you, you're stuffed. In Canada now, of course, you've got to be at least 14, or you have a supervising adult who has the certification. So it's not just your mum or your dad. They'd have to actually sit that drone certification thing and get that to supervise you when you flew. That, they're locking kids out of the hobby. Eat more possum. Thanks, mate. They're locking people out of the hobby, and that's ridiculous. This is a hobby that is for children. I started as a kid. Most of us probably started as kids, and now we're saying, oh, no. The airspace is too valuable. We can't have children in there. I mean, instead, the kids will have to go out and, rob convenience stores and join gangs and all that sort of stuff, I suppose. So, I don't know. People have lost sight of reality, I believe. And there is some, I'm going to do another video explaining how if you want to be non-compliant, and as I said in my video, I'm not suggesting anyone should be non-compliant. I'm not saying go out and be non-compliant. I'm saying if you want to make that choice, that is your choice. It's the choice I make on occasion. I'm not always non-compliant. Often I comply with most of the rules most of the time because they make sense. But on occasion, I can be safe, or even safer than the rules would allow me to be, by doing my own risk assessment, my own management, my own decisions. The guy behind the oak desk in the glass tower He's not here. He can't see what's going on. He can't make decisions for me anywhere near as accurately as I can. So I take the responsibility on my own shoulders. But a lot of people are probably going to say, I can't afford the risks. As Fully Drone Life will tell you, the fines can be substantial if you get caught. G'day, Adrenal Lifeline. Thank you for the super chat. The fines can be quite significant, and that is a worry because a lot of people got families to feed, mortgages to pay. You can't afford to run the risk of getting a fine like that. So your options are limited, but I'm going to do a video in which I explain the way you can fly under the radar. You can be non-compliant without having your head above the parapets and becoming visible to the authorities, because if nobody knows you're not compliant, it doesn't matter. And thank you, L. Liston, for your super chat, mate. Thank you. I'm a legend. Yeah, myth, I think, perhaps a myth. So, yeah, I think we need to be informed as to how we can do this, because as I said, I've been flying under the radar and outside the well, not so much under the radar, but I have been regularly non-compliant for many, many years. You saw that thing I put in my video, the list of investigations. That's just some of them. I've been investigated so many times that I'm pretty sure now, if you were to go to CAA and pull up my file, there'd be a big red notice on that said, approach with caution, because I stand up for myself. I do it. I act intelligently so as to make it difficult for them, if they wanted to get any kind of prosecution against me. I mean, you don't incriminate yourself unless you want to make a point, which I did with that little tiny whoop in the garden thing. I wanted to make a point, and I wanted to get them before a judge to basically show the judge and the world how silly some of these regulations are in the face of someone with the skill, knowledge, and experience like myself, who can outthink the guy behind the oak desk. They didn't want to take that risk. They didn't want to take the risk of putting me in front of a judge that would challenge the actual sensibility of the regulations. And I was pretty sure that was a choice they'd make. So I was right. As I say, I've been battling bureaucrats and overregulation and politicians for half a century or more, and I've learned a lot. Thank you, Axel. Beautiful, mate. I've learned an awful lot in that time. I'm just a little disappointed that there are a lot of people out there who I mean, I've tried to, Nick, wow, brilliant, mate. I've tried to pass on the benefit of my experience to others. That's why I said, do not register. This is a thin end of a very nasty wedge, and I tried to pass it on, but a lot of people who haven't been through what I've been through and haven't had the battles and fights that I've had have sort of said, no, he's just an old man grumbling, in New Zealand. What does he know? Fair enough. But I'm hoping now that, people will take a little more notice, because I've fought a lot of battles with these people. And in the beginning, I didn't win a lot. But more recently, I've won most of the battles that I've had. An example is here in Tokerai, the council was determined that no one shall fly a drone in the parks. And I spent, I think it was 3-4 years battling to get the right to fly drones in the park, and I won. I wore them down, and I used all my strategies so that even the most, vehemently opposed councillor had to give in the end and say, okay, we'll let you fly drones in the park. It was a battle. Most people would have given up, but I'm not going to give up. That's one of the things you learn is when you're dealing with these people, never give up. They rely on you to give up. They make life so difficult, and they put so many roadblocks in your way that most people will just eventually go, oh, it's too hard, I give up, go away. That's not me. I stick at it, and that really wears them down, because you got to remember, these people, they don't really want to do any more work than they have to. They're just like everybody else. Most people want to take the most direct and easiest route. So if you come along and you make their life difficult by making them do work and by constantly, bringing things up, and they have to address them and do the work, eventually they'll say, it's much easier to give this guy what he wants, and then he'll go away. And that works brilliantly. And it's the same with the hobby. We can make the lives of the bureaucrats, the politicians, the regulators very, very difficult. Eventually they'll go away and say, well, maybe we have to reevaluate our situation. It's very difficult in the case of this hobby, though, because it's not being driven by safety or anything else. It's being driven by that huge corporate money lust, and we need to educate the public on that. Educating the public is going to be one of the hardest issues, but it's the most important one. At the moment, the public are our foes because of things like that BBC report that told people who know no better that if that drone had hit that Hawker Hurricane, 20,000 people would have died. Not might have died or could have died, would have died. I mean, it's stupid. It's ridiculous. We have to counter that. And where is the various national groups saying challenging the BBC on that. Wasn't there a press release from the AMA, a press release from BMFA saying this is an untrue statement by the media? Why? Unless you challenge that, the public don't know, and so they just believe what they read in the paper or on the web. It's just, we're our own worst enemies because we don't challenge these things. Every time there is a story in New Zealand that paints a drone in a bad light, I always write a letter to the editor. I always publish a statement which contradicts the disinformation that the media is spreading. You've got to do it. We have to do the work. No one's going to do it for us. Back to the comments in case I've missed something. Where are we? Happy birthday. Thanks, Chris. Yes, everyone's a bonus now. Didn't expect to get to this age. Sammy Hudson always wanted a shout out. I'm not going to do it, Sammy. I'm not going to mention you. Sorry. No. Oh, damn. I have another initiative that I'm going to propose fairly shortly too, and it ties in with Bot Grinder's FPV Park. And I think that's a great initiative. Bot Grinder said he wasn't streaming today. That's why I've got my stream on at his time, so that hopefully all the people that were watching him have come here. I've got 116. That's not bad. It's not all the Bot Grinder crew, but it is a really good turnout, and I appreciate those who are watching. Now, one of the ways forward is, and I'm going to do a video on this as well, but I'll discuss it on the stream. Now, you go and buy yourself a Lamborghini or a Ferrari or even a Honda Civic. And these are all cars that can do well over 100 miles an hour, maybe 150, maybe 180 miles an hour, right? You can buy, but you can't drive them on the road at those speeds. We've got rules and regulations to keep people safe, because you're not the only person on the road. You've got mum and the two kids driving to school. You don't want someone in a Lamborghini screaming past her at 150 miles an hour. It's just not safe to do that. So we have rules, and we follow those rules because they're good, sensible rules to protect everybody. And these rules come out of years and years of analyzing the data and working out what's safe and what's not. And that's good, that's fine. But when you buy your Lamborghini or your Porsche, your Ferrari or your Honda Civic, you can go to a racetrack. You can go to something called a track day, and there you can drive as fast as your car will go. You can do sustained loss of traction. You can do four-wheel drifts. You can do burnouts. You can do whatever you like. You're not going to get a ticket. You're not going to get fined. You're not going to get put in jail. You're not going to lose your license, because you have a area where you can exploit the full potential of your car. Where is that for drone and model flyers? You go and buy a drone, or you build a drone, even something like this, you can fly kilometers away. You can probably go several thousand feet up into the air. You can fly beyond your visual line of sight. And while you may not want to do that in the general national airspace, because there may be a case to say it's not always safe to do so, why don't we have areas where those rules don't apply? Just as the road traffic rules do not apply on a racetrack, why don't we have rules where the aviation regulations do not apply to our toys in a prescribed area? So if we get, a big area, maybe it's 200 acres that we get permission to fly over, why can't we have that sort of effectively an area where we can fly as high as we want, as far as we can within the boundaries of that area, beyond visual line of sight, without observers, all the things we want to do? And the regulator, their job is to keep manned aviation safe. So their job is to say, this is an exclusion zone. This is an area where manned aircraft may not go, because there could be drones up to 10,000 feet or more, and they might be flying without visual line of sight. It's not safe for manned aircraft to fly there. Just as we say, the mother taking her two kids to school shouldn't be driving across the Indy 500 racetrack in the middle of the Indy 500. It's not safe for her to do so. So we stop her from doing that. Well, we need to have areas set aside where we can exploit the full potential of our craft without risk of getting fines, or where the rules don't apply. I mean, how many people in the comments think that is a good idea? I mean, put your hand up now. It would be, to me, a great way also, because, to deal with the idiots, the numpties that go out there and they buy a brand new, Mavic Mini or whatever, and they want to see how high it'll go, and they want to see how far it'll go, right? At the moment, there's nowhere, thank you, Doug, mate, there's nowhere they can go to really see what it's like. Everyone's going to do it. Everybody at least wants to fly as high as it'll go, and they'll all fly beyond visual line of sight to see what it's like. And what we need to do is provide them with an area to do that safely. And where other people can go, like if you want to do a range test or something, you fly out as far as you can go within the boundaries of the area. So these track areas for drones would make the airspace safer by giving people a place where they can legitimately go and exercise the potential of their craft without endangering manned aircraft or people on the ground or anything. Mum, dad, and the 3 kids will not be having a picnic in the middle of that area. They will not be allowed in there because it's not safe for them to be there. You can't have a picnic in the middle of the Indy 500, so why should you have a picnic in the middle of the track area set aside for drone use? I think that's the way to go. I mean, we've got this freer concept, but even in a freer, all the other rules still apply. It's just you don't have to be registered, you won't have to have remote ID, and there may be a special exclusion for altitude in some clubs. Well, why can't you have super freers where you can fly, be on visual line of sight, fly without an observer, do those things that you can't do at a normal freer? I think if the regulators were to give us a little bit of latitude there, they might gather more respect from the community. I know if there was such an area here, I would travel 2 hours to fly there on occasion. And I think that would be the same as anywhere else in the world. In fact, after Botgrinder's finished his model park initiative and closed off the funding, because I don't want to, leech on his. It was my idea originally with the International Model Park back in 2012. But Botgrinder's got his fundraiser going. Once his fundraiser is finished, I will probably run a fundraiser here to produce such an area in New Zealand. And I will go to the regulator and say, this is what I'm doing. And you need to keep manned aircraft out of here because it's not safe for them to be in here. And they will jump up and down and scream and say, no, you can't do that. And I'll say, it's not a discussion. It's not a negotiation. I'm telling you, this is what's going to happen. As the airspace regulator, it is now your responsibility to keep manned aviation safe and keep them away from this area. And we'll see what happens. It could be an interesting situation. I'm pretty sure. I asked about this once before, and the civil aviation here in New Zealand said, we don't have any exclusion zones. All we have are danger zones, and manned aircraft can still fly through them. I said, well, you need to change that because the whole landscape is changing now. You need to create an exclusion zone, and you need to change the rules for manned aviation because the risk profile is changing. And if you don't change the rules for manned aviation, you are not doing your job in keeping them safe. Right. Go back to the comments. I'm ranting here. Ranting. Terrible. What have we got? The cousin Schultz says the rumour's only about 4,000 freers. Now, I heard on the AMA live stream this morning that Tyler said that wasn't the case. Initially, they said they were only going to allocate perhaps 4,000, but that will change, he says. I don't know whether to believe him or not. He honestly believed that. But remember, as I said, the regulators will tell you what you want to hear and do what they want to do. So if the FAA's decided 4,000 freers and the AMA jumps up and down, they'll go, oh, yeah, we'll probably give you more. And then they'll just give 4,000. That's the way regulators work. I've seen it time and time again. So when you think about it, 4,000 freers, it's not going to work. There are 2,500 AMA clubs, and there are over 110,000 educational institutions, many of them with STEM programs. The FAA has come out and said, oh, we're all behind STEM. We're promoting STEM, especially for minorities. We want STEM. We want girls in STEM. We want non-white people in STEM. We want everybody in STEM. But if they're not going to provide a freer status for those educational institutions, how are they going to do it? How are they going to organise it? How's it going to work? So if the AMA thinks it's going to get all its clubs covered by freers, they think again, because they are just 2,500 out of 115,000 other institutions. And if there's only 4,000 of them going around, someone's going to miss out. And I think it would be far more politically harmful if educational institutions were denied freer status than if a bunch of old men flying trainers in circles were denied. So AMA has to be very, very careful here. I don't think they're listening, but I would give them sage warning on that one. Thanks, Robert. If I ever do get to Canada, I will drop in and I will go flying and start your place. What have we got? Have I got a Mavic 3? No. The only GPS guided drone I have is the FPV drone, the DJI FPV drone, and I haven't flown that for over a year, and in total I've probably flown it no more than 12 times, which is merely enough to get enough information to do a review. I can't fly it at my local airfield because DJI says no. And I mean, why? What is? I thought if you bought a drone, you owned it, but no, not if you buy a DJI. They still own the damn thing. And the interesting thing here is I know Brendan Schulman also says, DJI is very responsible. They have geofencing. That stops people doing bad things. And I said to Brendan, well, if they want to stop people doing bad things, why do they let you fly up to 8 kilometers away? it's a breach of the BV loss rule. You know, you're all happy about geofencing, but then you encourage people to fly BV loss because you keep advertising this massive range and capability, and you don't geofence to people within, 500 meters or whatever BV loss might represent. So yeah, I'm not a fan of GPS controlled drones. Oh, thank you, Morning View, for your $5. Another problem with GPS drones is that you don't always have control. You do not always have control. I always set up my freestyle quads and so forth so that if I lose signal, it drops. And I'm always flying over somewhere. I'm not going to endanger anybody. I don't fly over valuable stuff or people. So if it drops, there's no harm to anybody. With something like an Avata or a Mavic or something, the failsafe, if you've set it and it returns home, then who knows what's going to happen. It may be a helicopter comes along and your quad goes into failsafe and it flies up into the helicopter. You've got no control. What do you do? I'm not prepared to risk that. So I want it to drop on the ground, knowing full well that underneath me there's nothing that can be harmed. So that's why a reason I'm not really a fan of, for me, of GPS guided quadcopters. And how do we get an approach with caution sticker on our file? You just do what I do, I suppose. Be prepared to stand up for yourself. And another thing, we have to consider that we have to work as a team on this. There may be instances where people are, hauled up for doing nothing wrong, nothing other than a technical infringement. And I think we will have to chip in and try and support those people. If someone does something dangerous, then they can do it on their own. But as we know, you can do stuff that is non-compliant and still be completely safe. And one of the things, for example, I know someone has asked on the comments on my video, how are we going to get on posting videos if we're non-compliant? Because the regulators look at YouTube and they'll ping you for it. I mean, a lot of people have been caught recently. Poor old Wes got pinged by CASA because he put his videos on testing long range beyond visual line of sight. And it's only people eventually, when regulators got spare time on their hands and they've got to get some figures for their bosses, they'll trawl YouTube and they'll find videos, or in the case of me, there are my little trolls out there that live under their bridges, which conveniently are mounted in their mother's basement. They regularly complain about my videos. And I had this big stream of complaints coming from CAA until they decided that I was too hot to handle. And so people will complain about videos on YouTube. They'll get referred to the regulators. How do you do that? How do you avoid getting pinged for that when you could be incriminating yourself? Well, it's simple. You simply make sure your face never appears in the video. And remember that the burden of proof is on the plaintiff. If they're accusing you of breaking a rule, they've got to prove that you were flying. And if there's no evidence of your face on the camera, there's no, they can't see your car or registration or anything like that, it becomes a lot more difficult. Thank you, free range chicken, mate. It becomes far more difficult. And another thing that you can do is, and I'm pretty sure this will happen, is that people will start finding SD cards in the grass. You go to your local park, and what's this? Oh, it's an SD card. Oh, what's in there? Take it home. Oh, it's someone flying a quad. I'll put that on my YouTube channel. And there you go. Now, you've done nothing wrong. It's not illegal to put an SD card that you found the contents on a YouTube channel. And there's no connection from that content to you other than you found the card. And as I say, the burden of proof is on the regulator. In fact, I found an SD card in the grass at my local park. There's a video on my channel. I put that up, and someone complained about it. Look, there's illegal flying. Someone flying in a park. And so the regulator investigated, and they said, do you know whose card it was? I said, I couldn't tell you. And they said, do you know who was flying the drone? I said, I couldn't tell you. And they said, can we have the card in case there's some evidence on it? I said, I've already reformatted and used it. It looks like all my others. I couldn't even tell you which one it was. And they had to admit, well, there's not enough evidence. So that was, the investigation was stopped with insufficient evidence. And of course, as Robert's pointed out, I've always got Arnie there as my spotter. And because he has contractual obligations, we can hear his voice, but we can't see his face because it would cost me far too much money. I'd have to pay his agent a fortune to have his face actually in the video. So you'll hear his voice in the background now and then, and there you go. That's you've got to prove he wasn't there. You've got to prove that I didn't have someone else there, and so forth. But as I say, this is all predicated on, if you're going to be non-compliant, you are non-compliant in a way that is safe or safer than if you were following the rules. We have to show that we are not just being reckless, but we are being incredibly sensitive and safety focused. Otherwise, non-compliance is not an option. And Arnie is an excellent spotter. He's never missed a beat. He's fantastic. What else have we got in here? Someone needs to keep the poor birds safe at the park. No, the birds attack the drones. Actually, a couple of times I've had a quad attacked by seagulls. We have a few seagulls around here, and they will attack a drone. They bang you around. You really got to get out of their way. I try to stay away from wildlife whenever possible. And also, I tend to fly, when I'm flying near people, not that I do very often, but wildlife and so forth, I'll use a quieter drone, something that's not noisy. Even a 5-inch freestyle, if you're just cruising, they're very quiet. You bang the throttle, they make a hell of a noise. But if you're cruising, they can be really, really quiet. And you'll see videos where I've been flying over swans and other birds, and they don't even notice that you're there because you're just cruising. And that's what I like doing, because I'm old. I'm older. I like cruising. Not cruising like that, but cruising with my drone. And seagulls would rob you. They can be quite mean creatures, but hey, glue some French flies to my glider and see what happens. Yes, excellent flight times with fries, because the birds will take you away. And that's another problem for Canada, isn't it? I mean, I see people in Canada saying, oh, no, it's not a problem. Just get your drone certificate and away you go. But that doesn't help people who are flying jets or large scale or gliders, and who find the 400-foot ceiling just kills their aspect of the hobby. The exemption that Mac had previously gave them exemptions to greater altitudes, but now 400 feet, even my DLG gets to 400 feet. And so if you're flying a larger thermal soarer, if you've got a jet, or if you've got a big large scale model, you're stuffed. And there's no safety justification for some of the stuff that's going on. So, and Trade Trev says, g'day, old mate. G'day. Yeah, with a jet, 400 seconds, absolutely right. When they fly jets at our airfield here, they have a NOTAM to 1,000 feet, because that's really the basic minimum. You need that much. It's safer to do that. If you're trying to stay under 400 feet, it can actually make the flight less safe, because you have to do tighter turns, and you're putting more stress on the airframe. So what's Sammy say? Look, the only way we can fix this is we'll need to get together. Yeah, exactly. We'll need to be together. Unfortunately, we're a community of individuals, or have been to date. There's been no cohesion, no unified voice. You look in America, you've got various groups that have immense lobbying power. Oh, thank you, Eric. Fantastic. The groups have immense lobbying power because they come together as a unified group and they speak with one voice, and that carries a lot of weight. We're just a noisy rabble, and all they can hear is this chattering going on. There's no clear voice. AMA, AMA is not what it was. I mean, how many members in the AMA? About 200,000. Yet there are over 1 million people registered with the FAA as drone operators. So they are just a tiny percentage of the total hobby now. And no problem, Don. I'll do my best. And one of the things that is come up and is this: people are saying, "Oh, don't throw GPS drones under the bus." By pushing for carving out a niche for the traditional hobby and its record of safety, don't throw our Phantoms and Mavics under a bus. And I'm not doing that, because one of the important things I learned many years ago is, if you're fighting a war against something that's much bigger than you, you pick your battles and you strategize so that you go for the easy wins first, because every win you can build on for the next win. Every win gives you credibility. It proves that you're coming from a position of authority, knowledge, understanding, and power. So you start with the very smallest win you can get, and then you come back for the next win, And the easiest win we could get right now is to say the traditional hobby hasn't really changed. In fact, it's got safer in the last 10 years. So you don't have to impose the rules you're imposing on other forms of the hobby on the traditional hobby. Carve out a piece. And that means then we've got one victory to build on. And then we come back and say, okay, you've acknowledged that the traditional hobby, it doesn't need to be over-regulated because it's proven itself safe over 80 years or more. Well, here's the thing. More people have died in the traditional hobby than as a result of the recreational use of multi-rotor drones. So you can't use safety as a justification for these regulations on multi-rotor drones. You need to also reduce the regulation level you build. You can see what I'm doing. You build on each victory and you hold their feet to the flames. And you say, well, there we go. You've done this. So therefore you're acknowledging that and you must do this. This is what you've got to do. You've got to be smart. You've got to think ahead. So I'm not in favor of throwing GPS drones under the bus. I'm just saying that that's a much harder battle to win if we don't have a victory already under our belt that we can leverage to give more weight to our claims in respect to that part of the community. We all need to work together, but we don't. It's like herding cats, and we've seen that. I mean, there's so many. Look at the situation with what is it? The FPV Freedom Coalition. Now, I don't know how many people fly FPV in the USA or in the world, but there's got to be many thousands of people fly FPV and enjoy this hobby. How many people are members of the FPV Freedom Coalition? How many people turn up to their town hall meetings on every second Thursday? I go to those town hall meetings, there's a dozen or so. Where's the rest of the crowd? People are not willing to actually appear and put in and put in the effort to actually support these things. They're going to fail. And I started a movement on Facebook, hoping that we'd get thousands of people. It got, I think, 1,000 people out of all the people all around the world who I hope would stand up for reasonable regulation. 1,000. There's over 1 million registered in the USA alone, and I got 1,000. And how many people watch these videos? 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 if I'm lucky. Most people just don't care, and that's a shame. And the regulators and the politicians prey on this. They know not enough people care, and that's what worries me about these campaigns, these letter writing campaigns. And quite often people say, "Why don't we start an online petition?" And that's the worst thing you can do unless you know you've got the numbers, because this letter writing campaign that FTCA and FPV Freedom Coalition have got going now, I fear that what will probably happen is there will be hundreds of letters, hundreds of emails sent to the politicians, and they'll go, there are 300 million people in the USA. We've got 300 emails. These people don't matter. They don't even register. We're going to ignore them with safety because they just don't have the numbers. They're not interested enough to do anything. You've just shot yourself in the foot. You could have come across and said, we are 1 million strong and we want this, but you've said, we're 1 million strong, but only 300 of us care about it. And that's the problem. It's sometimes better to say nothing. Sometimes it's better to say nothing, and than to actually show your cards and say, well, we don't have any cards. Actually, we're just full of hot air. So, Dan says, I think we have more than 300 already, as far as members to the FPV Freedom Coalition, but they don't have any. You must have a way to track it. Surely, when people join, they have to sign a form or say I'm joining or whatever. Otherwise. In fact, you need to have that. So you've got the numbers, the firm numbers to take to anybody that you want to influence. Not knowing how many you've got is a bit of a weakness. And that's why a lot of organizations have a token payment, $1 or something, just so they can say, yes, these people have paid, they are paid up members of our organization. I'm just saying, oh yeah, I'm a member. It doesn't count for much in the eyes of decision makers who will say, you could have made that up, prove it, And if you're going to say there's 300 people we don't know, oh, he's saying 300 people sending letters to reps. Well, there you go. That's the number. You notice Flight Test didn't put their pitch on their main channel. Why not? They've got 2.1 million subscribers on the main channel. They've got 10,000 on the other channel. Why would you not? If you're really serious about this, why wouldn't you go out there and pitch it on your main channel to the 2 million people? Because Dave Messina was telling us in a stream the other day, Flight Test has got a connection with 2 million hobbyists. Not through the FTCA channel, they don't. They've got a connection with 10,000, and that's a whole different figure. That's a tiny, tiny percentage of the total population. So I don't understand. I wonder if Flight Test are missing a wonderful opportunity there, or if there's some other reason why they wouldn't leverage their Flight Test. And Dan's saying Flight Test are working on adding something to a future video on their main channel. Adding something to a future video or creating a special video for that purpose, I don't know. I would have thought they would have done that right from the get-go and get the momentum going. And another thing, remember, when you're sending emails into somebody, it's better if they all arrive at once. It's a massive workload. Whoa, look at this, thousands of emails. But if you get, 10 a week over 3 months, it doesn't have anywhere near the same effect. That's for sure. Excuse me while I cough. I should have bought a drink. I did, but I drank it almost. No, it's not alcoholic. I'm sorry. I'm too tired. If I had an alcoholic drink, I'd fall asleep straight away. I've been going since 3 this morning, and it is now 3:20 in the afternoon, so that's 12 hours. What else we got in the comments? I have to follow the comments. Morning Views, a paid up member of the FTCA. Encourage everyone to join. It's a free membership. It's a free membership, but you're paid up. How does that work? Oh, there is a free membership. Okay, yeah. I mean, we have to join all the organizations we can, and we have to focus and not just join, but participate. Become part. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem, they say, apparently. So I think there's a bit of wisdom in that saying. And Flight Test, for fear about negative backlash. Yeah, I mean, Flight Test, AMA, FTC, FPV Freedom Coalition, they have all been in the position where that they don't want to damage their ability to influence the FAA by getting offside. And that's fair enough. I could have understood that at the beginning. But I'm hoping they now realize there's nothing to lose. They have no influence. They've had no effect at all on the progress of regulation and restriction on hobbyists. So there comes a point in time where you say, we don't have anything to lose. It's time to become a little militant. And I've been the militant guy right from get-go. That's just who I am. And I was hoping we could play good cop, bad cop. I come up with outrageous ideas, and the regulators then say to these organizations, this guy is crazy. And they can turn around and say, yeah, he's crazy, but maybe if we watered it down to this level, we could do that. And that's where you get the compromise in the middle, but you've got to have the extremes to get the compromise. Unfortunately, we haven't seen that. I've been militant, and they've all just said, no, he's a waste of time. He's an old man, grumpy old man in New Zealand, ignore him. So, yeah, anyway, that's that. And what does Dougie say? The other problem is that, like when we fought this a while back and FAA posted all the immature posts that were made, why would they want to take us with comments like this? Yeah, I mean, but that's the same with every kind of feedback. You're always going to get that. You're always going to get people that's ridiculously immature, and they expect that. People expect that. Whenever there's a contentious issue, there's always the dim bulbs, the people with one oar in the water who want to have their say, and they expect that. It's not going to damage your cause, because no matter what group. Hey Shelby, how's it going, mate? Excellent. Still loving the vids. It's something that these people expect. It's not going to do too much harm, because they tend to be a very small fraction anyway. In some ways, it's kind of good because it shows the passion that some people have for these things. And as I mentioned in my video, I think I wish FPV Freedom Coalition and Flight Test had consulted with me before they did their campaign, because this copy and paste, forget it. It is worthless. I've been involved in so many campaigns where we've seen copy and paste just ignored. It's just ignored because it's just a number, and it doesn't require any work to handle. They should never have done the copy and paste. Never have done the copy and paste. They should have said, doesn't matter how poorly you word it, these are the bullet points. You just write down in your own words what these are and ask for a response. They've missed that opportunity. It's because a lot of people have contacted me and said, I'd already sent my email in. I wish I'd known that beforehand. Well, now, it's too late unless they want to send it again. And then you've run the risk. Oh, look, people are sending in too. It's not the numbers we thought it was. It's people are doubling up. They're cheating the system. So you only get one chance to make a first impression. And that's been lost, unfortunately, by people who probably haven't had the same level of experience as me in engaging in these little battles with bureaucrats. And I says, Bruce, if I rocked up at the field without being a member of any club or system, would you permit me to fly at the field? Of course I would, because we have a system in New Zealand where you are allowed to fly under the supervision of someone who is a member and has the necessary, in our case at the airfield, the necessary wings certification. And so, you would be supervised to make sure you knew how to fly and look over your shoulder, make sure you did anything stupid. And that's quite legal and legit. And it doesn't matter if you're flying a helicopter or a multi-rotor or a fixed wing or a glider, we don't care. We're one of the few clubs, I think, around that doesn't give a damn. As long as it's flying, you're remote controlled, you can go for it. People have bought Phantoms and Mavics out there, and we've had to say, you can't fly that here. Why? Because it's geofenced. It's nothing to do with that you fly it, but it's geofenced. So DJI says that their drone, the one you think you own, is not going to fly here. And that disappoints them, but then they often, we've got one woman at the moment actually who came out with a Mavic Mini, and she's now really keen to get in. I've set up a fixed wing. We're going to train her, and she's got a buddy box with a quad. Brilliant. So she's getting into real flying. I mean, she's 50 years old, and she's keen as beans. It's fantastic. It's what we do. At one stage, our club had more female members than any other club in the country. We had a really high percentage of female members, and that was before it was trendy to like the FAA has done. Everything is female. You look at their streams. Look at all this stuff. It's always a woman presenting it now, usually a woman of color, because they want to focus on minorities. They have Women's Day this, Women's Day that, minorities this. It's like so many organizations, they've gone, everyone should be treated equally. I don't believe in distinguishing for or against anyone on the basis of color, race, ethnic origin, or religion, or anything like that. Everyone is the same, and our club proves that. We've had people from all races. We have people who identify as women. We have everything there. And that's the way we treat everybody as an individual. But the FAA's just gone this, they've removed all the airmen and all the gender-specific nomenclature from there. They spent millions updating all their information to make sure there was no gender references. Oh, what the hell? When they talk about human, it's not, manned. It's not man, me as a bloke. It's man as in mankind, as in the human race. But they couldn't see that. It's just, I'm old. I don't fit well with this modern philosophy, because I'm just a believer everyone is treated the same. I don't believe in discriminating for or against anybody on the basis of anything other than with the way they act and what they do. That's the decider. That's the factor on which I judge people, is what they do, not even what they say, because a lot of talk is cheap. But what people do, I base my judgment on what they do. And most people, in my experience, no matter where they come from and who they worship or whatever they do, most people are pretty damn good. Pretty damn good. There's very few people I actively dislike. Maybe the former mayor is one of the few. Now, what have we got? Sammy Hudson, he's 15 and got into drone 3 years ago when he's 12. Yeah, but the problem is we're locking these people out of the hobby. We're locking kids out of the hobby with this regulation, and it's going to get worse. It's racist not to discriminate. Yeah, you're right. It is racist not to discriminate. If you're not seen to be discriminating in favor of someone, then you're discriminating against them. You can't be neutral anymore. It's not acceptable. I'm sorry, but I don't care what they say. I'll do what I want in that regard, and that is I'm going to treat everybody the same. What else have we got here? Yeah, FAA spent millions to, oh, where'd that go? Disappeared. I don't know. Comment vanished in front of my very eyes. I was retracted. Yeah, deeds, not words. That's it. That's it. Deeds are cheap. Words are cheap. Deeds make, are the difference. That's what's important. So yeah, what else have I got on my list of things here? So I would invite people to go and donate to Bot Grinders FPV Park if you can. I'm hoping we can get that as perhaps the first of these rule-free zones, and it'll become a global thing. It'll be to the benefit of the hobby enormously. Flying drones speaks louder than words. Only if you're flying a whoop. They're really loud. But hey, in my defense of flying this over my house, this is still much quieter than the chainsaw. This sounded loud on the microphone, but when it went behind the fence or in the front of the house, you couldn't hear it. Whereas the chainsaw was 3 or 5 houses away. You could hear that through all the trees and fences and things. That was much louder. And this only flies for 3 to 4 minutes at a time, because usually I've crashed by then. The chainsaw went for half an hour. And then I thought, oh, the chainsaw stopped. I'll go out and finish the video. And then neighbors turned on some music, which would have got me a copyright strike. So I just gave up. I'll do the second part later on. And as Sammy says, if we don't listen to their rules, what will they do? That's exactly what can they do. Remember, these rules are only effective by consent. If nobody follows them, the rules are useless. And then the overlords who direct these regulators to make the rules will say, why aren't people doing what you say? And then they question the effectiveness of the rule set. And then they come back to the table and say, well, okay, this happened in the 1920s and 30s with Prohibition. The American government said, you may not have alcohol, you may not drink alcohol. And people said, we're going to drink it anyway, and they did. Eventually, the American government said, okay, well, we're looking a bit foolish here. You might as well go back and drink alcohol. The same happened with marijuana. I mean, I don't smoke dope. I know Bot Grinder is really into it, but I'm not really into mind-altering substances. I've got old age does that for me. But I look at marijuana, certainly across the USA, it was a criminal offence for a long time. And now it's being decriminalised state by state, and Canada's decriminalised it, and other countries are decriminalising it because non-compliance was rife. Everybody, when I say everybody, the majority of the population, according to the figures I've seen, have smoked or regularly smoked marijuana at some stage in their life. So why would you have the embarrassment of having a law that was obviously being ignored? That's what these people don't like. They don't like passing laws to see them totally ignored. Then they'll say, okay, we're looking stupid. Let's revisit that. It's what's happened with marijuana. It's what happened with alcohol. And it could happen with drones. Now, choose not to comply. That is an option. As I say, the second part of my video will show you how to do that more safely. You don't want to get fined. You don't want to get pinged. You don't want to end up in trouble. And I'll show you strategies and techniques that I've used to do that for the last, since the rules changed here in 2015. I've been doing that since 2015. And although there have been a list of investigations as long as your arm, I have not been fined. I have not been prosecuted. The worst they did was send me a warning letter to someone else. I think if you watch the video, you find that interesting, that CIA did a warning letter, and then they sent it to someone who wasn't me and violated my privacy. They breached the privacy rules in New Zealand because they didn't check my address. They used an address that was years out of date, and so they just sent it there, and someone else got to know that I had been warned. And this is the incompetence you're dealing with. And again, it's all about people too. It depends who you're talking to in these organizations. There was a guy I was involved in, a guy called Dean, And I wanted to educate him. I said, look, you come down to our airfield where we fly, and I'll show you how safe this stuff is. I will, put a set of goggles on you. We'll fly you around. You can have a look, have a fly, because you've never done this. You need to be exposed to this and see how wrong you are. And he called the police. He called the police on me. He said I was threatening him for that, really, honestly. He called the police and said that I'd threatened him because I'd invited him to come fly with us. And that's because you have some people who really, they live for bureaucracy, and they just don't understand. Oh, here's Doug J, one of my trolls. Thanks for dropping in, Doug. I really appreciate it. I'm glad that you've put the PlayStation aside and come out from under the bridge. He says, if we don't listen to rules, what will they do? $250,000 fine, 3 years in prison. For starters, genius. Run as far as you can from Bruce Simpson. He ain't right in the head. Well, I'm sure that's true. I mean, I've freely admit that. I got Parkinson's. It affects your head, brain. It's terrible. But honestly, Doug, you tell us, actually, while you're here, Doug, tell us, what are you doing to protect, promote, and support the hobby? I'd really love to know, because obviously from your position, you are doing a damn sight better than me. Let us all know in the comments what you're doing, Doug. It would be an honor to hear from you in that respect. Go for it. Go for it. Yes, I know, Dan, I've heard of trolls. As I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, I have 3 really good trolls. I have Doug J, who's just turned up here, and he's going to explain why he's doing so much and how he's doing it. I have a guy called Northland Rider, who regularly weighs in and throws things at me. And I have a guy called Gutsy Movies, who also comes in, and he also likes to do his little bit of trolling. It must be a very big bridge somewhere they all live under, and I'm sure they have little troll parties and to say things behind my back that I'm a bad person. And I never said I'm a good person. I just do the best I can. That may not be good enough for some people. Fair enough. And yet, Chris makes an interesting point. The FAA doesn't make laws, they make rules. And people have raised this before. It's not a law, it's a rule. So, but the difference is that the way most of these things are structured in most countries, like here in New Zealand, we have a thing called the Civil Aviation Act, which is a law. It is an act of Parliament. And under that act, the Civil Aviation is authorised to make rules. And if you break a rule, you are therefore in breach of the Act, because the Act says everyone must follow the rules that are made by the CAA. So if you break a CAA rule, you're only breaking a rule, but you are indirectly then in breach of the Act of Parliament, so you're breaking the law. And that's the way it works. It's and they do that this way because it's much easier to make a rule. There's less overhead involved in consultation and processes and hearings and things than it is to change a law. Laws are really changed very infrequently. Rules are changed quite often. So they take it away from they use indirection basically, and that's what the FAA has done with CBOs. The FAA has a process for making rules, which says they've got to go through the consultative process, like they do with the NPRM for remote ID. They've got to go through that process. It's long-winded, uses lots of resources, and it's terribly, they can't drink as much coffee or eat as many donuts while they're actually working. So they have decided we will short-circuit it. We will create CBOs, and the CBOs, people who fly under their rules must fly under their rules. And if you want the protection of a CBO and whatever, you must fly under their rules. And we can get them to change their rules easily. And if they don't change their rules, we can revoke their CBO status. So they've made it even easier to control us by having 2 levels of indirection. The government passes it on to the regulator, who passes it on to the CBO. So now it becomes trivial. They can change a CBO rule in the blink of an eye, basically, by saying, if you do not amend your rules to this, we will revoke your CBO status. And that's effectively what happened in Canada. They just said to the MAC, we're taking away your exemption, taking away your privileges. That's it. No consultation, nothing. Just we can do it. So that's why you're going to be very careful. And the bottom line is, some of these craft should never be subject to these rules in the first place. You shouldn't need an exemption because there's no reason, there's no justification for these ridiculous rules applying to some of our toys. And so to sort of enforce, to apply these rules and then offer us an exemption as a way of getting around them, it doesn't float with me at all. And thank you, Jetmumba, for the birthday wishes. And this 1 kilo thing, this is interesting. I don't think it's going to fly, as I mentioned earlier in the stream before it was scheduled to start, because it's not about safety. This is not about safety. We know that. It's not about safety. So saying, sub 250 is proven safe, make it up to 1 kilo, and 1 kilo is a safe, it's not about that. It's not about that at all. So that's unlikely to fly. I don't think it'll work at all. And remember, as it is, the sub 250 is transient. Because one of the options we have for dealing with remote ID and some of these things is to just go sub 250. We've got some really capable sub 250 craft now. Some of these, especially the little freestyle drones, you wouldn't know you weren't flying a 5-inch. They fly really well. And in terms of fixed wing, you've got some really good little fixed wings. But it's only transient. Well, look to Japan. They had sub 250. And then they decided, no, we're going to make it sub 200. And so the DJI Minis have a smaller battery in Japan. And this will keep coming down because you've already seen the changes gone from the regulators. It was all about safety before. You're going to bring down airliners, you're going to kill people, blah, 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 blah. And now the FAA has pivoted. It's all about security now. Remote ID, it's about security. Because we've proven the safety argument doesn't hold any water. 10 years of evidence, not one death. They can't keep claiming it's all about safety because we've proven there isn't a safety issue. So now it's security. You've got to protect the nation against spying and people using these drones to blow up infrastructure and things. So they're going to keep dropping it down. The spying one especially. They're going to say, well, these 250-gram drones, they can have cameras. So we're going to, like it's happened in the UK. If you've got a camera, you've got to bring the level down again because reasons, security. And so they're going to, because the ultimate goal is just to have us not there. Not there because Amazon, they want the space. Google say they want the space. All these flying taxis and all these things that if you look out your window, you'll see them now. They litter the sky. They want that space. It's nothing to do with safety or security. It's all about control and money. And people initially, when I said that, well, poo-poo, yeah, it's all bullshit. But I think now we've proven that, we've proven beyond a shadow of doubt it's not about safety. And I think we're going to prove again it's not about security, which only leaves money. That's all it leaves. I just wish these people would be honest instead of trying to lie to us about the reasons for these regulations. And what else have we got here? And yeah, it is worth trying. There's nothing lost. The only battle truly lost is the one never fought. So, because even if you lose a battle, you learn something in the process. I've lost plenty of battles, but I've lost less and less as time's gone on because every time I lose, I learn something. And I then use that knowledge to make it more likely I'm going to succeed next time. So, go for it. Because the other problem you have is that then the regulators and the politicians can't say, you should use the system. You can say, we used the system and it didn't work. So we're left with no other alternative but what we're doing. So they can't use that as a justification for not dealing with you. Rules will get to, balloons are fine. They just get shot down. And the crazy thing, again, it's not safety because here in New Zealand, I can make a balloon, I can tie a 1 pound steel bar to that balloon, let it go at an airport. It's quite legal. There's no rule against it. It's allowed. Yet I can't fly a 250-gram in my backyard within 4 kilometers of an airport. How does that work? The balloon I have no control over. It can drift into the flight path of airliners, and a steel bar is going to make a hell of a lot more impact than something like this if it hits a plane. But that is safe. And flying this in my garden isn't. Work it out. It's not safety. Every time we look at it, we find a reason to show that it's not about safety. It's not about safety at all. Did I miss something from Doug again? Oh yeah, I did. What? Can I scroll up? Yes, here we go. Doug, that's just the pitch. Ignore the FAA. Gotta love the Invincibles. Oh, thanks, Doug. Yeah, you're right. Oh, it's a great movie. Great movie. Don't know what it's got to do with anything though, but that's Doug's take on things. That's his contribution to the hobby. That's his support, promotion, and protection. Fantastic. We all appreciate you, Doug. And you can go back under the bridge now. You've had your say. But you notice I do not block people and I do not censor people. I do not delete comments on my videos. Unlike some, I welcome every point of view. I want everybody to have their say. I may violently disagree with somebody, but I will fight to the death for their right to have their say. Thanks, Chris. Brilliant, mate. I believe that freedom of expression, freedom of speech, the ability to voice your opinion is far more important than anything else. Because I acknowledge I'm not always right. I mean, I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes. I will make mistakes in the future. And the only way to learn stuff is to listen. And the only way to learn new stuff is to listen to people who don't agree with you. And if you stop listening to people who don't agree with you, if you censor them and you delete them, then you're stagnant. You're not going to learn a damn thing. And you might as well just pack up and go home. So I welcome all dissenting viewpoints. And I've learned a lot from people. I'm not too proud to say, gosh, you were right. You're right. I was wrong. Thank you. I've learned something. That shows that you're still alive and you've still got a brain. People that don't do that, they're locked in their little mindset and they will never progress. They'll never learn anything. Mike, you're probably right. You're probably right. Yeah. Mind you, Flying Buzzard, YouTube does some crazy, stupid stuff. I know people have complained. They put comments on my video, and they said I took it down, and I didn't. And I checked the held. I'll make sure it's not being held because it might have had some unsavory comments and some forbidden words. But YouTube sometimes deletes stuff. It just deletes comments for no good reason, and it's all about their community guidelines, I suppose. Their AI probably says, "Ooh, that might be a double entendre. We can't have that. There might be a 6-year-old watching when they should be out flying drones." I don't know. So, yeah, it's funny. See, I know L. Leston, yeah, we've discussed that, and I've already done a video on that about the raising the registration threshold to 1 kg. If they can pull it off, it's brilliant. But I am a pragmatist, I'm a realist, and I realise the odds of that are very low for the reasons that I've cited. It's not about safety. Keep up the videos, Bruce. Yes, I shall. Thanks, Scooter. The problem we've got is this has been a terrible year for weather in New Zealand. You saw my fence. I put most of it back up. Most of it blew over. Most of it just blew down because the winds were so damn strong. And here in New Zealand, we have the largest exotic timber plantations in the world. Timber is one of our major industries. We have pine trees, massive pine forests. We export wood all over the world. But you know what? Can't buy any plywood. No one's got any stock. It's supply chain. It's all related to the pandemic, apparently. But we can't buy any wood. Where's it going? What's happened? Have the trees caught the virus? I don't know. But I've been trying for months because I've been progressively replacing parts of the fence because it's old and dilapidated. But I can't buy plywood to replace it. So I've had to do jury fix-ups, and the fence itself is made from a fiber cement thing, and it's terrible. It just shatters when it hits the ground. So I've done the best I can, and I'm trying to get some plywood, but it's terrible. But it gives me gaps, and I did get through the gaps, as you saw. Where are we? Yeah, Tradie Trev. Someone emailed me today, or posted today, and said they'd put a link to my video up on Facebook, and their club had made them take it down. Their club Facebook page, they made them take it down because I guess they didn't want anyone promoting non-compliance with the rules. Fair enough. Everyone's entitled to their opinions, and if they've got the power, they've got the right to exercise that as a power. Excuse me. Yep. Oh, Doug's back. G'day, Doug. A $250,000 fine, 3 years in prison, possible for not registering. Are you all on crack now? Come on, Doug. How many people have been fined that? How many people have been sent to prison for not registering? The maximum penalties are seldom ever enforced because the courts generally have look at Philly Drone Life. How much was he going to be fined? $125,000 they were going to ping him. Has he got $125,000? Did they pay $125,000? Did he pay $125,000? No, he didn't. Stop fear-mongering, Doug. Stop fear-mongering. I tell you, man, you're out of touch with reality. I mean, too much PlayStation. You haven't got PlayStation 10. You've got sunburn from all those rays from your gaming monitor. Right. What else have we got here? Have you been down annoying the council lately? Oh, I don't have to. They're imploding at the moment. They had a meeting. It's funny, it's in the media. They had a meeting on Friday for which they had an empty agenda. So they all turned up to a meeting with an empty agenda and spent 90 minutes discussing nothing behind closed doors because they didn't want the public to know. And then they went home, and the paper found out. So it's been published. The media's published it and said, what the hell's going on? And I didn't realize it, but they held a 90-minute meeting because if they go to 90 minutes, the chairman gets paid $2,000 for the meeting. Otherwise, it's just a few $100s. So they're all looking out for themselves. They are all looking out for themselves. And that's just it. It's crazy stuff. Yeah, Flying Buzzard's probably right. A lot of people are not registered. Why aren't they in jail? Why aren't they being pinged $250,000, Doug? What's going on? Are you lying to us, Doug? Is it not really the problem that you are saying? You wouldn't lie to us. You're an honest guy, straight up guy with everyone's best interests at heart. I know you are, Doug. You're a great bloke, really. I'm sure. Where's your super chat, Doug? Come give me a super chat, mate. Come on. I challenge you. If you stand by your opinions, throw me a few bucks and see what happens. Let's see. Were you politically outspoken before the RC hobby? Yeah, I've always been outspoken. People at one stage, people said, "Oh, you're anti-authority," and I respond by saying, "No, I'm anti the misuse of authority." I mean, when politicians and bureaucrats do the right thing, I'm very quick to praise them. On numerous occasions, I've come out publicly and said, "This is fantastic. These people have done a wonderful job. It's great." Unfortunately, you don't always have that opportunity because a lot of the time they just don't do a good job. But I praise every bit. In fact, I much prefer to praise than to criticize. But I've seen so many people disadvantaged by the bureaucratic process that give up too easily, that have their rights effectively usurped because they don't know how to engage in dealing with these people. And that's what these people rely on. And a lot of the bureaucrats, unfortunately, have this mindset that what is the point in having this authority and power if we can't misuse it? And that has to be stopped. Has to be stopped. Let's see, what have we got? Anti-overreach of authority. Yeah, that's right, Cousin Schultz. I am anti that. Everyone deserves a fair trot, and they don't always get it. Doug J is angry because his mum, Karen upstairs, won't let him go outside and play and fly his quadcopter. So he's angry. Sorry, Doug. SC, where have you been, man? Oh, we've been going for ages. How long have we been going for? An hour and 10 minutes. That's a long time when you're my age. So there we go. And where are we headed? Well, we all know where we're headed if we don't do something. So we have to do something. Now, one thing that if people want to help is you can, spread links to my videos on your socials. Not because I want the ad revenue, because it's never going to be a big audience, but because people need to know this stuff. They really do. Oh, he's still going on, $250,000 fine, 3 years in prison. Yep, you're going far in life. Doug, please cite one example of anyone that's been imprisoned or fined $250,000 for not being registered. You're saying this is the case? Come on, tell us. And thank you, Paul. Thanks for the money, mate. Doug's about to chip in with a huge super chat, I know, because he's in favour of safety and I'm in favour of safety, so he'll be supporting me. What else have we got? G'day, Captain Calgary. Morning to you. It's fantastic. Yeah. Oh, don't be too harsh on Mike. Not on Mike. Don't be too harsh on Doug. I mean, he's probably a victim of his upbringing. It's not fun living in a basement. Really not. But we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes the penalty for non-compliance with overreaching government is death. Give me liberty or give me freedom. Yeah. Well, that's one thing. That's one of my mottos. I mean, Midnight Oil put it very well. I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. And that's the way I look at it. Of course, I'm probably, as Doug says, I'm privileged. I don't have to pay the price for all this. Well, my motto ever since I was diagnosed with Parkinson's is carpe diem. I live every day as if it's my last, because one day I'll be right. And in the meantime, I've got to make every use of every facility I've got while I can. That's why I'm putting so much effort into this fight. I know that my future's not that rosy, but then again, I've made the 70. I couldn't wish for more. But at some stage, my mental faculties will be more greatly impacted than they are now, and I may not be in a position to champion for the hobby and rally for the hobby. So I've got to do what I can while I can do it, and I work very hard to try and keep myself, sufficiently mentally and physically agile to keep up, these sort of fights. And so, time is of the essence. Time is our enemy, certainly my enemy. So I'm trying to get things happening as quickly as they can, because the longer we leave it, the more entrenched these regulations become, and the harder it is to get, sensible regulation replacing the ones we've got. What do we got here? It's great for flight test and foam airplane stuff, but not for any of us flying $100 plane. Hell yeah. I mean, this lifting the registration threshold, obviously flight tests are involved because that's most of the models that they make and sell and so forth. There's a commercial imperative there. And we can't discount other aspects of the hobby. I've got lots of models that weigh over a kilo. Why should they be registered when, something else isn't? And but it's not about safety. It's not. Happy birthday. How did you become so active and involved in fighting for the misuse? Well, because I've been on the sharp end of the stick on a few occasions, and I thought this isn't right. How many other people are suffering at the hands of bureaucrats who've got megalomania problems? And when I investigated, I found a lot of people are. Right? For example, my wife had a very bad accident what is it now, 14 years ago. She was a teacher. She fell in the school and she injured her arms, broke both her wrists, and she was taken off to hospital and they had to resettle the bones. And during that process, she had what's called a fat embolism, where the bone marrow gets into your bloodstream and that causes little bubbles of fat that travel around your bloodstream. The problem is they lodge in your lungs and they lodge in your brain, which cuts off blood flow to important parts of your body, when the brain loses blood flow. So she suffered an extensive amount of brain damage. And we had an inordinate amount of difficulty getting the health system in New Zealand. We have a no-fault national insurance policy. So if you have an accident, all your costs are covered because you pay a certain amount out of your taxes for that. So we went to them and said, we need your help. And they said, no, we don't think that her brain injury was caused by a fall. So we had to go and spend all the money we had getting professional opinions from neurologists, from doctors. Even the surgeon that did the surgery said, no, it's definitely caused by this fat embolism. And we went back to this insurer and they said, no, we don't believe you. We're going to send you to our experts. So they sent us to a gynecologist who was one of their paid consultants. So this gynecologist looked at my wife and said, no, your brain injury isn't caused by your accident. Gynecologist. And we had neurologists and the surgeon who did the surgery saying, yes, it was. And the insurer said, no, our gynecologist says they're wrong. These experts in the field of brains and surgery are wrong. Our gynecologist knows what he's talking about. So at that stage, I said, I'm not giving up on this fight. And I spoke to other people who said, we'd had the same situation. Eventually, we just got so tired, we gave up. I didn't give up. We fought for 2 years. We fought hammer and tail. I spent all the money we could getting brain scans and neurological reports and assessments and things, took them to court, and we won. It was a Pyrrhic victory because after 2 years, the help my wife needed during that vital 6 months where you've still got some, plasticity in your brain after an injury, that was long gone. But we won. We got, I think, a small lump sum compensation. Didn't in any way compensate for the injury that she got, and she was never able to work again. And so, but I wasn't going to let them, do that to other people as well. So I've helped other people in the same situation, and I do that. Where the bureaucracy is going to basically hold you at arm's length until you give up, I try and step in and say, nope, you need to sustain this fight. And it's the same with the drone regulations. The bureaucracy is just saying, yeah. Oh, yes, AMA, you're right. Yeah, we'll tell you what you want to hear, and then we'll do what we want to do. Not going to hold any water with me. So there we go. I'm not here to grizzle about my situation or my wife's. What's Doug saying now? I followed this con. Oh, it's a con now. From the days on. Big fan. He's done more damage to RC than any other FPV outlaw influencer on YouTube. Thank you for the compliment, Doug. Thank you so much. I guess he hasn't seen all the people. I had an interesting email years ago when I did that ZMR 250 video on RC model reviews. I had an email from a group of veterans. I think it was over 50 veterans who, no, it wasn't. It was the AXN video. That's right. When I did the AXN build video, had 50 US veterans, military veterans, who emailed to thank me because they saw the video and they built their own planes and they loved it. And that's how bad I am. That's the con job that's going on here. And if you look at all those affiliate links in my descriptions, all the sponsorship spots, all the mid-roll ads I run in my videos, I'm only in it for the money, folks. Only in it for the money. It's a giant con. Doug will tell you. I think Doug is burying himself with every comment, but hey, let him go. Let him have a say. Free speech is important. What have we got else here? It sucks when bad things happen to good people. Yeah, it does. And I don't like seeing that happen. And as I say, everyone I've met in this hobby, maybe with the exception of Doug, I've never met him, so I don't know, are good people. They're good people. No way I'm 70. I look way younger. Yeah, what are you looking for? I don't look that much younger in real life. I've got the flatter mode on with my camera. I guess if you watch my other channel, Bruce Simpson, which is the one I put unhobby related stuff on, I did a video basically saying that I work really hard to try and stay young because I see a lot of people younger than me who are old. They're really old. I mean, they talk slowly, they walk slowly, and a gust of wind would blow them over. And I don't want to be like that. I want to be robust, especially with the challenges I'm facing and I'm going to increasingly face as my Parkinson's progresses. I want to make sure that I'm in the strongest position to continue enjoying life. So I put a lot of time and effort into trying to keep myself in shape and healthy. And it's paying dividends. It's paying dividends. By now, apparently, I should have been a little shaky mess in the corner of the room. But I've done my research. That's another thing. When I'm fighting these battles, I do my research. In fact, one of the biggest compliments the last mayor, the woman who knocked down our tower, the biggest compliment she ever paid me was she said, "Bruce, you are a dangerous person. You are meticulous in your record keeping, you're intelligent, and you do your research. That makes you dangerous." And I thought, thank you so much for that, because that's what you got to do. That's what you got to do. And Doug says, looks like he's on his deathbed. No, my deathbed's over there actually. So no, yeah, you're right. Terrible. I'm so close to death. You shouldn't worry about me. And the lighting's not very flattering. And this is a very old T-shirt. I didn't get dressed up for the stream. What else have we got here? Doug J is disgruntled. I don't know who Doug is actually. I don't know him. And I looked at his channel and there's very little there. Most of the trolls have nothing to contribute themselves. It's much easier to be a critic than to actually get off your bum and do something. Well, that's people's choice. Half the battle is not slowing down. Absolutely, Scott. And you're a channel member, are you? Is that what that green thing means? I don't know, because I've got channel membership here. I haven't really plugged it hard, but it is really good because it does compensate for the crappy YouTube earnings, and I appreciate those who are members, if you are a member, Scott. And you get absolutely nothing for your money. It's fantastic, isn't it? What a deal! What a deal! But yeah, the battle is not slowing down. Your mindset makes all the difference. You know, you can decide to be old, or you can decide to battle it. I mean, I intend to live forever or die trying. That's my philosophy. That's why one day I'll die, but until then, I'm going for it, full steam ahead. And that's one of the reasons that I am sometimes not fully compliant. I don't have time to be compliant. I do have time to be safe, but I don't have time to be compliant. What have we got? This is more of a comedy routine. I don't know who he's talking about. No idea. Maybe Doug. That'll be it. Yep, Green is a channel member. Excellent. See that? We've got a channel member in here. He's a hero. I brand all my channel members heroes because they are. They're the people who maybe are not in a position themselves to actually get in and throw blows in the fight, but they do support me to do that on their behalf. And that makes a huge, huge difference. I mean, I have, between my two channels, I have nearly 500,000 subscribers and 140 million views. And AP, thank you, mate. You're a supporter too. Excellent. But my estimated revenue for the last 28 days is $500 from YouTube. $500. It's it's not a lot of money. You can't pay all your bills on $500. Fortunately, my Patreon is more than twice that. Which, if it wasn't for Patreon, I couldn't survive. And I'm hoping channel memberships will ramp up. But a lot of people don't like Patreon because of its leftist-leaning politics. I mean, I don't like that particularly either. But they do take a fairly small chunk of the money that people donate, and that is important. But if you're ideologically opposed to Patreon, then you can go to the channel membership. So YouTube just takes a bigger chunk, that's all. But it's certainly better than nothing. And in one of my videos, Ron will be back. Ron had some tests on Thursday. I hadn't heard back from the results of those. He's still in hospital. Unfortunately, I've got my problems, but Ron's are, I think, worse because they've decided he's got muscular dystrophy, which is it's not a good place to be because your muscles are basically wasting away. The muscle protein synthesis that rebuilds muscles as they break down, that fails. So your muscles don't get replaced as they break down. So you get weaker and weaker. It's really not a good place to be at all. Thank you, Paul. Man, that's fantastic. It's not a good place to be in that situation. And yeah, I'm hoping Ron will be able to get out of hospital. We can prop him up in the corner and he can use, because I'm sure his wit is as sharp as ever. It's only his muscles that are wasting away. I'm sure he'll still be a valuable, part of the team. Thank you, Mike. Much appreciated. A valuable part of the team. And, we really need to support him. He is a fantastic guy. He's a real character. And, I have the channel, but it's the people that I video that make the channel. It's Bill and Gordon and Ron and all those people. I like to think I'm able to bring out the best in them with my camera and the way I edit stuff. But without them, the channel wouldn't be what it is. And it's important that we show the channel or show the hobby as something that people can enjoy. And you don't see blood. You don't see people getting hit. You don't see bad things happening. We lose a few models. But ultimately, it's about people having fun in a safe way. And the fact that we do it in an airfield, if it were manned aircraft, come and go show how safe it is, how much margin of safety we've got. And that's really important too. So if we are able to do that at an airport, surely people with smaller models can do it in a school ground or a park without the burdensome. And we don't have to register in New Zealand. There's no model register. Wow, Jeff, thank you, mate. There's no model registration in New Zealand yet. There's no remote ID. There's no compulsory exams. So despite all that, we're safe. So what are these things actually doing for safety in other countries? If we can remain safe without any of these things, we can fly at an airfield, why do all these other countries need these ridiculous regulations? I mean, again, it's not safety. We've proven that so many times. And that's why the FAA has switched to security, but we're going to prove it's not security either. It's not security. I've got a video I've been working on for quite some time to try and educate the public, because I'm preaching to the choir. This is an echo chamber. Everybody, apart from Doug, probably agrees with me here. But we need to get the message out to the public. So I've spent money on voiceovers, voice actors. I've spent money on stock footage, and also and music libraries and things, so that I can produce what I hope will be professional grade content, showing the public what's really going on, the myth of drone delivery, the myth of air taxis, and what it's doing to our young people. It's stealing their hobby so that the likes of Google and Amazon can pretend that there's something going to happen that they can reap huge rewards from. YouTube may remove it from the channel because it's not in their interest to have it there, but I'll put it up on Odyssey or somewhere else if they do. But the public needs to know. They need to know, and Doug talks about con jobs. Well, this is the con job. This is the giant con job, the lie that's being perpetrated on the public, that this is all about safety and stuff like that, when it's all about Google, Amazon, and the other companies that want to build these UTMs and charge a fortune for the use. It's all about that. And ultimately, we're going to pay. The hobby is going to pay, because we know that the skies will not be filled with delivery drones. There will not be pilotless flying taxis zipping backwards and forwards all over the place. Thank you, Spartan. What's going to happen is this will never come to pass, but the governments will have invested in all this UTM technology provided by Google and Amazon on the promise that it's going to happen. When it doesn't happen, someone's got to pay the bill. Who's going to still be flying? You and me. So pay to fly. We will be burdened with the cost of paying for these services that are not required because the government's already committed to buying them. So the hobby will not only be penalized by rules, but financially penalized. That's the pay to fly that is coming. Invariably, it is coming. And that's what I'm trying to warn people about. And even now, I think most people are saying, oh, no, that's not right. No, it's all about safety. It's all about security. No, there'll never be a pay to fly. But look at that NPRM for remote ID. That was pay to fly. You could not arm your plane, your quadcopter, or anything until you got clearance from the UTM. Do you think that clearance will be free? Do you think that they will give it away? They won't give it away. You'll pay. You'll have a subscription, or you'll pay per arming in order to get that clearance. And store-bought models will have to have that built in. You won't be able to circumvent the pay-to-fly thing built in. And if you build your own ones, then you will probably have to get them certified. You'll probably find that if it's over 250 grams or 200 grams, whatever it is, you'll have to take it in and get it certified so they can see for themselves that it will not arm without having the token from the UTM that you've paid for to enable arming. It's only a matter of time. Oh, here's Patrick. G'day, Patrick. How you going? They need the RC hobby numbers to make the expense pencil. Exactly. That's just what I'm saying. It's all going to come down on us because this myth of drone delivery, the myth of air taxis, just not going to happen. It may happen eventually, but certainly not in the next decade or two. But the costs will come in well before then. And thank you, Dennis, for the nice compliment. Yeah, appreciate it. And Stephen Evans, thank you, mate, for your $10. Whoa, this has been very lucrative. Oh, Doug's right. I'm only in it for the money. Oh, dear. Actually, if things keep going the way they are on YouTube, although it may impact the willingness of YouTube to promote my videos, I may disable monetization, at least on some of the videos, because it's hardly worth the bloody hassle now. It really is hardly worth the hassle because as I say, $500 for a month, and I've got a catalog of over 2,000 videos. And yet, thank you, Scott. Put towards your example model. Thank you. Yes, I will have to buy that because I'm disappointed somewhat. I wanted a Piper Cub, particularly some civilian craft, not a military craft, because then the connotation of drone could come into it. But I want a civilian craft like a Tiger Moth or a Piper Cub, something that people recognize as being non-military, small, foam. I want to be able to take it around the streets, do that survey, make a video about that, show the public that they're wrong about what a drone is, what they think a drone is. And I did tag FMS, I tagged Horizon Hobbies, hoping that one of them would step up and say, okay, yeah, we're happy to help you protect the hobby. Not a murmur, not a peep, they don't care. They're just not interested in protecting the hobby. it'll come back to bite them on the bum eventually, I suppose. But it is a disappointment. So I'll have to go out and buy one, and I will, because it's important. I'll buy something and I'll put my money into this, and we'll do it because it has to be done. And here we go, telling people to break laws with real penalties that yourself are not subject to is not support. Doug, where have I told people to break the rules? I've specifically said I cannot tell you to not comply. I'm not going to tell you don't comply. That's a personal decision. I haven't told people you must not comply. Originally, I said don't register. That was before registration was actually required. That was in the lead up. I said don't register. But I've shown people I'm prepared to break the rules. I flew BVLOS. I flew without a spotter, and that's against the rules here. So, Doug, I'm sorry. You're wrong again. It's a tragedy, but hey, it's good to have Doug in here. It really is. And Scott's right. We make our own decisions, and we reap the results of those decisions. Be they good or bad. But it's something this is something that annoys me quite a bit. I'm going to put my old man's hat on now, because I was brought up in a different era. During the time I was brought up, we weren't taught to slavishly follow rules. We were taught we had to be responsible for our safety and the safety of the people around us, and we had to make our own decisions. So we weren't told what to do. We were told what we should be trying to achieve, and that made us very self-sufficient, very responsible for the actions we took. These days, it seems we're getting to a shift more towards leave it up to government to decide what you can and can't do. And then you're not going to be responsible when things go wrong. You don't have to be responsible. Government will take that responsibility off your hands. I don't think that's a good thing to do. I think people should take personal responsibility in everything they do, not say, oh, it's not my fault or whatever. And of course, then you have the cult of victimhood. Oh, it's not my fault. I'm a victim. I'm owed something by the government or by the taxpayer or by the guy down the street. It's all someone else's fault when something goes wrong. No, look in the mirror. Look in the mirror. Raised by dinos. That's me. I was. Yeah. And Max Air 420. Truth, Doug. Oh, fantastic. And Mickey says, I will always exercise the rights and freedoms I was born with over 60 years ago, no matter who has an issue with it. Good on you, mate. I mean, that's it. If we do not exercise our freedoms and we do not stand up for them, they will be taken from us. They will be taken from us. And that has been proven. Look at the freedoms we lost. When they revoked Section 336 in the USA, all those freedoms disappeared. They didn't disappear immediately, but you knew that was the thin end of the wedge, and away it went. And that was the time to act. That was the time when the AMA should have stood up and said, no, we're not accepting this. If you want to kill our hobby, revoke 336, we will go to the public and say, the government has banned this hobby. They should have done that, should have taken that. But they chose to go with try and use the system, and that has failed them abysmally. Non-compliance, are we going to see that? Yeah, the X-Jet technology is reborn. And I mean, this is interesting. When you look back in 2002, I built a cruise missile in my garage, and the world media covered it with great, they sensationalized it. Oh, this guy's built a cruise missile. And I even got the Prime Minister of New Zealand spoke to me and said, well, you're not doing anything illegal, but it's not a good idea. The American government got involved and said, you've got to stop this man from building a cruise missile. My goal was not to empower other people to build cruise missiles. My goal was to point out that, hey, in the wrong hands, this technology is now available off the shelf. People can build their own cruise missile. The governments of the world should be aware of this and be taking precautions. And generally speaking, I had some interesting contacts from within the US Department of Defense, individuals who contacted me and said, we know what you're saying. We're aware of it, but no one's listening to us. Our superiors are not listening. You're doing a wonderful thing, bringing this to our attention. We're hoping that the people who make decisions will take notice. Nobody would take any notice. And now here we are 20 years on, and they're all going, oh, these things are dangerous. They could be the end of us, But we've had I was wrong. Well, I wasn't wrong, but I overestimated the intelligence and commitment of people who might use these things. The people who want to do bad things, it's much easier to fill some pressure cookers with gunpowder. It's much easier to get an SUV and put propane canisters in it. It's much easier to become strap something to your back and walk into a crowded area. It's much easier to hijack an airliner than it is to make a drone capable of causing this kind of problem. So again, we've got 20 years of experience that show for 20 years, it has been possible to do the things that they're claiming now are going to happen, and it hasn't happened. There's your proof. And I tried to warn people at the beginning, and I overestimated. I'm happy now to say I'm the guy who originally brought this to the attention of the world, and I'm saying it is not the problem I thought it was. I was wrong. As I said, I'm happy to admit fault when I'm wrong. I was wrong. I overestimated the threat, and now I'm saying it's the governments that are overestimating the threat. So, where do we go from there? Here's a good story. I got into health and fitness. I got into hobby through you and Flight Test back when they were just starting up. I've dropped out of the hobby when the FAA and the feds got into regulating. Yeah, it's very sad. Every morning when I check my email, there's inevitably one or more emails from people saying, thanks for all your help over the years. I'm giving up. I'm selling my stuff, or I'm hanging it up. It's just, I can't take the stress, or I can't afford the risk anymore. That's not good. But of course, the industry is going to pay the price. The aviation industry and aerospace industries are going to find in 10 years' time, when they go out to find engineers and would-be pilots and designers, there's nobody there. Because all those people have come through aero modeling and model aircraft as an entry point into this area of industry. What is it? Neil Armstrong came through model aircraft, and you look through everybody you did. If you take those people out of the equation, because by the time they reach the stage where they've adapted a hobby, or say when they're 13 years old in Canada, hobby's not an option unless you've got an adult willing to get the test and supervise you. So they'll choose something else. They'll go model railroads, model cars, something else, and they won't be interested. They won't be obsessed and passionate about aviation. So they're cutting off their nose to spite their face by doing all these, thank you, James, doing all this over-regulation. They're killing the very lifeblood of the industry. They don't realize it. They're too stupid. There's so many stupid people. Right, where are we? Follow up some more comments. So, happy birthday. Thank you, Wireballs. Much appreciated. And oh, Doug, still talking. That's great. Patrick says, no one wants to hear that personal responsibility stuff. I know they don't. It's much easier to just blame someone else and absolve yourself of all responsibility. But it doesn't lead to a better outcome in the long term, I'm afraid, as we are discovering for ourselves in recent times. Where are we up to now? It's an hour and a half, 95 minutes already. And Doug would probably say, you've milked them for all they're worth. You might as well go. And we'll see what happens. Any other points people would like to raise in the comments? I've tried to cover as much as I could remember. And as I say, there will be videos coming up on how to fly under the radar and why I think we need some rule-free parks for model flyers. The Flying Buzzard said, milk hombres. Oh, yes. I shall be having a double latte espresso tomorrow. And someone's working on it. Actually, the interesting thing is that in the USA, if you built a gun that flew, it would have fewer regulations than building a drone, because Constitution. It's probably an avenue to. You can't put a gun on a drone, but can you make a gun that flies? I don't know. Something to consider. Want to predict how many years the AMA has left before their membership numbers are so low they go to business, or they will charge, or they change to grow membership? I don't know. At the moment, they got their head in the sand. They really have. I mean, Tyler Dodds said this morning that they support the initiative to raise the registration threshold, but I've seen nothing going out to the members. Why aren't they pushing it? Why aren't they going out to members and saying, look, this is what you got to do? And of course, the AMA members are an interesting bunch, because how many have we got here now? We've got 146 people watching the stream, and I'm one guy in New Zealand on the other side of the planet. I watched the AMA stream this morning, had 12 people watched it. 12 people out of the 200,000 members. Well, out of more than 200,000 members, because I'm not a member and I watched it. Thank you, Stephen. Much appreciated. So the AMA, I think, is dealing with a different demographic. Their membership, correct me if I'm wrong, someone, is probably a lot grayer and older than most of the people coming into the hobby right now. And we ran a risk that the hobby is going to grey out for a long time. And we're going to run that risk again if we're going to cut off the lifeblood with age limits as to when people can get in. Thank you, Stephen. Twice. Woo. So yeah, we're going to run into a problem that the hobby will grey out, and the AMA doesn't seem to care about that. In fact, someone from MAC said the reason that you haven't seen much response from MAC members is that most of them won't know about this until they get their printed newsletter. That kind of speaks to the age of the average MAC member, and that's a shame. I mean, I'm old, and I fly model. I should be sitting on a fold-up chair with a blanket over my lap, talking about how wonderful I fly and saying it's too windy or it's too calm, and actually then just putting my model back in the car. But I don't do that. I'm actually more of a get up and go. I like to think that I have a younger mindset than the 70 years that my escutcheon betrays, but a lot of people don't. And those old people are not into social media. They're only interested in their Sunday chatting to their friends at the field. And regulation doesn't affect that much, because it's been my experience, a lot of these people don't actually fly much. They say they take their wonderful nitro-powered balsa and film-covered model out of the back. Wow, Paul, I really appreciate that, mate. That's fantastic. They take their model out of the back of the car and they put it on the ground, and they say, it's a bit calm. I'll wait till the wind picks up. This likes a bit of wind. And then the moment there's a hint of breeze, they say, it's too windy now. This model won't handle that. And they chat to their friends and they pack the model up, put it in the car and go home. That's their day's flying. So they don't care what the regulations say, because they don't affect them. And we have that problem. We need more young people in there, more people that get up and go and fly. And that's why I so love the freestyle quad movement. It's interesting. It has a really young vibe, but if you look at it, there's a lot of people my age in 50s and 60s in flying freestyle quads, but they're all young people my age. They're not old people my age, and that's brilliant. That's where we should all be at. We should be much younger than our years, and freestyle quads seem to attract that sort of crowd. And they fly responsibly, generally fly responsibly, and most of the time they're not flying where there's a lot of people. They're not flying where there's airplanes. They are one of the safest groups amongst the new disciplines of the hobby. They're flying in bandos. They're flying down the side of a mountain where there's, you're not going to be annoying people, not endangering people. And that's not recognized. It's really not recognized. And that's a huge shame. So, Kerry's not happy with it. I bet your wife says the same thing. Kerry Miller, not happy with my 3-inch. I want bigger. And you don't think I've aged since the 1990s? Yeah, I must have been. Looking at my videos back, going back even 10 years, I look much older than I do now, because I was not taking care of myself the way I am now. I didn't have the sort of Damocles of Parkinson's hanging over my head. I thought I'll just keep going until I die. And then I realized that if I want to keep going, I've got to put in the effort. It's like anything. You get out what you put in. And it's like this fight. It's like my fight against Parkinson's. The more effort you put in, the better the results. And we've all got to appreciate that. If we want a good outcome, we've all got to contribute something. And if you can't contribute it yourself, then you've got to go out and encourage others to contribute it. We're in an echo chamber here. We need to bring in people from the outside and get our numbers going up. Right, so Flight Test. Yeah, Flight Test is doing a wonderful job of getting young people into the hobby. They're doing what the AMA should be doing. If you look at the average age of a Flight Test member versus AMA, they are the future of the hobby. They really are. Was a question. Here we go. What was your first model, Doug? I was Christy Brinkley, I'd think. It's probably about that old. Maybe Cindy Crawford. That'd be Doug's style, I should think. Looking good, Bruce. I'm looking pretty crap today, actually, because I've been sleeping really badly recently. I'm getting about 3 hours sleep a night, and that takes its toll. That's the worst thing about Parkinson's. It's not the shakes and trembles. You can sort of deal with it, but when you can't get more than a few hours sleep at night, it really knocks you around. And sometimes I'll go for 4 or 5 days with 2 or 3 hours sleep a night, and then I'll get a good night's sleep, and it makes all the difference. But at the moment, I'm coming out of a long period of bad sleeping, so I'm not really thinking as straight as I could be, and I'm a bit shakier than usual. But good days, bad days. I live for the good days. That's what I do. And it says, Cliff asks, any ideas on how long before New Zealand is hit with RID, or do you think it might miss us? It's probably inevitable, because the same pressures apply here as apply around the world, the commercial pressures. I know that the Ministry of Transport is pushing very hard to get us to have to register. And of course, I won't do it. It's up to other people whether they do or not. I won't register. Because there's this, where America goes, the rest of the world follows. And we've seen that America's got RID, and we've got some European countries have got RID. Everyone's going to follow. The UK will get RID, whether they want it or not, because the governments believe that it's essential in order to create new economy in the sub 400 foot airspace. And because we're all in danger of people flying Mini 2s with 400 kilos of explosives strapped to it into highly populated areas, because that's what they think happens. Or we're going to bring down World War II fighters and kill 20,000 people. That's what they think. I don't know why. What else have we got here? Patrick says the AMA thought they were going to be the blessed CBO and went along with the FAA's madness. Yes, they got offered their 30 pieces of silver and they took it willingly, and are now going to pay the price. And Eric says, you in New Zealand? Yes, I am, although it's spelled differently here. There's an A in it, but maybe it's a different country, I don't know. Yeah, I live in New Zealand, live in Tokoroa. We're sort of in the middle of the North Island, just up a bit from the largest lake in the Southern Hemisphere. and yeah, it's good, apart from when the cyclones come through. That tends to knock you around a bit. What else have we got? I always put 20 kilograms of gunpowder on my tiny whip before I start flying. Keeps me, yeah, good work, GY6. It's good service. Yeah. The media will get that and they'll run with it. You know, they'll believe it. They'll tell the world. It's crazy. We have to be very careful what we tell the media. Chris says, RID in New Zealand has some issues where the proposed RID requirements would rub axe the wrong way. Yeah, we have a privacy act here. I don't know how you'd get on, actually, because of course privacy is an issue in the US, but national security trumps everything. And it's the same here in New Zealand. We've seen the SIS, certain groups granted immunity to some of our laws. And in fact, we've had things like our SIS, the equivalent of the, what is it in America, the CIA or the NSA. They have been granted exemption from the laws. Everyone knows Kim.com. They raided his house illegally, and the courts ruled that it was an unlawful action. But nobody got fired. Nobody got thrown in jail. No one got fined. It was just unlawful. You know, unlawful. When you or I break the law, it's illegal and we get punished. When the police break the law or the government breaks the law, it's unlawful and they learn lessons and move forward. Does that sound fair? Rules are for thee, but not for me, seems to be the mantra of those in power, and I'm not having it. Oh, thank you, Tritone FPV. Been watching it since 2012. Excellent. You can probably take a couple of moments for yourself now. Yeah. Right. One little Lee. I'm not 80 years old. I'm in my 8th decade. And just to explain, because a lot of people get it wrong, and I deliberately put the 8th decade just for effect. But when you're born, you are 0 years old, but you're in your first decade of life. And you're in your first decade of life right up until the time you turn 10. Then you go into your second decade of life. So I've turned 70, I enter my 8th decade of life. I'm not 80 years old. I don't know if I'll make 80, but can only hope. Well, Doug can only fear that I reach 80. Yes, arrays start at 0. That's right, Chris. That's the way to explain it. And that's why the year 2000 marked the beginning of the 21st century, not the 20th. There you go. So have we missed anything? Is there anyone I haven't insulted or upset, apart from regulators? No. Just a reminder, I do have that personal channel, Bruce Simpson, if you want to go and look at that. There's not hobby stuff on there, but there's other stuff about how I cope with life. Not much on there at the moment. I've been pretty busy doing all this sort of stuff. And I haven't done a lot of stuff on RC model reviews for several reasons, one of which has been the weather here. It's been absolutely atrocious. I have the Boxer radio to review. I have the Swordfish to review, but I haven't been able to get any flying, and really haven't. It's just been terrible. And this weekend, we've got drag racing at the airfields. I can't fly. And of course, because I am a sensible person, I don't fly at the airfield without a spotter, a visual observer. I don't comply only when it's safe to do so. It's not safe for me to go and fly, the Swordfish at the airfield when there's no one to spot for me. So I don't do that. It's not about not complying. It's about always being safe. So, I'm sensible in these things. So that makes it difficult to get the time to do these things. And also we've had this big problem with after the epidemic, just getting stuff down here, and the cost of freight's enormous. So a lot of companies are now saying, we'll send it to someone nearby who will do a sales video for us. We're not going to send it to you down in New Zealand because you'll criticize it. And it'll cost us more to send it to you. So I appreciate that. And so RC model reviews, I'm going to focus more on perhaps on the theory stuff. I mean, it's not a big thing to me to get free stuff. No, I'm not chasing. In fact, most of the stuff, and ask anyone in the club, most of the stuff I get for review, I give away. I give it away because otherwise it really makes me cringe when I see reviewers with masses of quadcopters on the wall behind them. I'm thinking, you're never going to fly all those. Why are they sitting there? I have had so many quadcopters and planes sent in for review over the years. I have maybe 5 or 6 quads and probably 3 or 4 fixed wings. Most of those ones are paid for myself. Everything else I've given away. Give it away. Had a guy come, one of the old club members came out the other day who had didn't have any models anymore, and I gave him a quadcopter and I gave him a radio because I had them sitting there, and if I didn't give them away, they'd never get used and they'd gather dust, and that's not what they're built for. They're built to be used. So, the fact that someone's using them, that's a much bigger bonus than the fact that they're sitting under a bench in my workshop somewhere. And so, yeah, I don't know why people hoard these things and like a trophy. Look at all the quads I've got. Woo! You don't look at my quads. I only keep the ones that I fly. So, yeah, I wish other people would take the same perspective and consider the benefit to the hobby of doing that. And as you see on the videos, Bill gave a whole lot of models to Scott last time because Scott had broken a lot of his models and Bill had spare ones. And so we just give stuff to each other. And also I give stuff to people who aren't even in the club, who are interested in the hobby, might want to get into it. I've given away FPV goggles, given away models, transmitters, all sorts of stuff to people who showed an interest in the hobby, trying to get them involved. So I'd give Doug something if he came past. I'd even give Doug something. A model, I mean, not anything bad. So I'll give him something good. Yep. Old Grey Cowboy, wish Ron and you, all the boys, health and happiness. Yep. Well, we've got happiness, but we're suffering in the health department a bit at the moment. But I shall pass on your comments to Ron. Yes, and Cliff, I'll pass the comments on to Ron. I'll actually I'll text him and see how his tests have got on, and maybe we'll try and get a visit if he's going to be in hospital next week. Might try and get up to visit him, but hopefully he'll be home, and I'll probably take the camera around, and he can tell you all how he feels. Maybe, yeah. Okay, yeah, Ron is the man. He is the legend. He has many a story to tell. I know, because I've heard them many times. That's great. Absolutely. And he's good at the dancing too. Have you seen his moves? He's fantastic. A clip under the ear for Doug would suffice. Oh, no, don't be harsh on Doug. Feel sorry for him. I mean, we've seen what he says. We're aware that he has challenges in his life. So, just feel sympathetic. Don't feel angry. Yep, everyone hopes Ron gets better. And all those comments on that video, he read them. I think he was quite chuffed. He was quite chuffed. What's all this? What's all this? He said. So I think he was very pleased to see that, because it's important people realize that they are important. Ron is important to this hobby, maybe to a relatively small number of people, but he's a big part of the hobby on this channel, and he's a big part of the hobby and people that like to watch the channel. And so yeah, we're all hoping Ron gets better and gets better soon. Right, that's probably enough. Was nearly coming up close to 2 hours, because I started at about 10 too, because I wanted to get early in case this didn't work, and even then my damn microphone didn't work to use this crappy webcam microphone. And I will try and I don't know what Woody's in I Spy. I'll find out and maybe put a post if people want to go and visit him. Yeah, I've got crappy. This is an old what is it? Intel i5 3200 or something. It's an old computer, and it's great for web surfing, but it's just not good for web streaming. I really need to update my hardware. All my money's gone into my editing rig, because that's where I spend most of my time, and it's where you need the most power. So I will probably, when money allows, I'll upgrade this, and then I can use all the fancy stuff that everyone else has with the green screen, all the crap that everyone enjoys, and hopefully then I can use my microphone, which would be great. So it's not all echoey like it probably is now. Right. One little Lee, what happened to Ron? He got sick. He had an operation to put a stent in an artery because they found an embolism or aneurysm. Found an aneurysm when they were doing a scan, and they decided to fix him. And one thing I've learned is if something's not broken, don't fix it. If it was me, I wouldn't have had the stent. I'd have just lived with the fact that I've had an aneurysm for, in Ron's case, 70-something years. It hasn't killed me yet. I'll just hope it doesn't kill me now. But Ron got it fixed, and in doing so, it caused all sorts of problems. Although I'm not going to go into this because this is a highly debatable topic, but what some of the doctors have said is that it was because he caught the virus that triggered a gene that was previously dormant and has caused the muscular dystrophy. And so it's down to the virus, and other people say it's down to the vaccination. I'm not going there. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, and I respect everybody's opinion on that. But we just don't know. The honest truth is we don't know what triggered it, but he's got it and he has to deal with it, and we have to try and help him as best we can. I look and sound great. What stream are you watching, Axel? Not this one. Right. And Robbie says, that's what a good club does, help others, as I have given one of my trainer planes to the club. Hope to get a good young one and have a go. Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's how it works. That's what clubs are for. It's camaraderie. It's the bonhomme. It's people working together in a common cause, and hopefully enriching their own lives, the lives of others, and the lives of people that come into the group. And that's what you got to do. I mean, I notice as you get older, you get more focused on other people rather than yourself. I mean, my wife, despite her own problems, she does a lot of work for Lions and things. She's out there in the community helping anyone she can, and I really respect her for that. And I do what I can whenever I can. I've gone down to the local, we have a thing called the Achievement Centre, which is where intellectually disabled people congregate, and they teach them arts and things. And I went down, together we built a model airplane, we flew it at the local airfield to watch these people's eyes light up when they'd never been engaged in anything nearly so complex before, and they achieved something brilliant. That's what makes this all worthwhile, is the joy you bring to other people. I've had enough joy in my life, I don't need any more, but it's so good, and you get more out of it than you put in. It's a bigger, when I see someone smile, that makes me smile bigger than their smile, and that's what really matters. I'm a terrible business person now, because money is no longer something that drives me. It's the least driving force. I've got to pay the bills, but apart from that, if I've got $1 left at the end of the day and people are smiling, I have been successful. And I hope more people take that attitude. It really is. It would make the world a better place. Captain Morgan, we love you, Bruce. I hope that's in a brotherly way. Here's Doug again. What's he going to end to this outlaw nonsense? The overlords have though this through with remote ID and registration. Oh, he's on again. $250,000 fine fee. Come on, Doug, I've challenged you. Put up or shut up. Tell me who has got imprisoned or been fined $250,000 for not being registered. Come on. The challenge is on the floor. If you want any shred of credibility, give me the details. You obviously know about it because you're telling us this is what's at stake. Give us the details, Doug. We'd love to hear it. Captain Craig says, Ron has been a great part of my YouTube experience. All these years, he has made me laugh, even in times when things were not so great. I'll always be grateful for that. That's it. Never underestimate the value of a smile and a laugh. If we didn't have laughter and the ability to smile, there'd be no point in existing. And that's why I try and make my videos, my flying videos, as much fun and laughter as we can squeeze into them. And, that's it. That's what the hobby's for. Thanks for the membership, Steve. Great. And I think you made a donation before. I'm blown away actually by the level of support. Let's take this out further. Let's extend this beyond this little group of 133 people watching at the moment. And wow, 188 likes. That's impressive. Let's take this out there to the wider audience. We've got to get involved. We've got to recruit other people to make them aware that the future of the hobby is in their hands. They can't just sit around and let other people do it. They've really got to get involved. Thank you, Robbie. Brilliant, mate. Excellent. What have we got? Keep up the good work. Excellent. So yeah, I'll probably call it a Nina. What is it now? It's coming up to 5 o'clock in New Zealand. I better go and spend some time with the wife, have a little bite to eat. And as I say, I've got a couple more videos in the pipeline which I'm editing up, which will include some of the stuff I've put in the stream. But hopefully, we've had 150 people at one stage watching the stream. A lot more people need to know about the things that we've discussed: flying under the radar, finding SD cards in the grass, building areas where we can fly our drones without fear of prosecution in a way that exploits their full potential and enables people to get how high and how far out of their system so they don't do it in places where it's not safe to do so. And a reminder again, of course, Bot Grinder has hopefully the first one of those parks under crowdfunding at the moment. And I think if everyone knows where to go if you want to contribute to that. I fully support his initiative. And I thank him for giving up his slot today for me to fill it, because that's effectively what's happened. I will try and do more live streams in future to keep people up to date with things that are going on. There may be one way to, no, probably not, because I still want to do the videos. Still need to do the videos to get this out there, even though the channel takes a hit. I'm prepared to take that. And the stream has been brilliant. I've earned more, I think, in the stream than I'm probably going to get out of YouTube from any other videos I make this month. And I really do appreciate it. I don't think you people realize just how much I appreciate it, because if the bills are paid, I'm more likely to get a good night's sleep. And it means that it frees me up I spend so much time researching, scanning the news wires, and most people probably realize that the arguments I present are well thought out, well balanced, intelligent, logical, and hard to deny. And that's what you got to do. You got to come up with arguments that are not just based on assumptions and speculation. They've got to be based on hard facts. That requires a lot of work to get those facts done. But the old Mia was right. I'm meticulous in my record keeping, and I do my research. And it's you people that allow me to do that. You guys are the true heroes that will save this hobby. I'm just the guy at the front of this. You guys, through your support, are leading this challenge. You should all be proud of yourselves. You're all heroes. Members are special heroes, but everyone's a hero. Anyway, Doug, you're a hero, mate. Without you, where would we be? People wouldn't know what a con man I am and what danger they're getting into by exercising their free will and their right to choose. Everyone give Doug a big round of applause. Fantastic. Anyway, that'll be it. I will go now and spend some time with the wife. And as I say, I appreciate you all. Stay tuned. There's more coming, that's for sure. Okay, I'll click the button. Where's the button? There's a button somewhere. End stream, that'll be the one. And bye for now.